Christmas. I pray your Christmas celebration includes all the joy possible for you, your family, and your spiritual family. This is a season of incredible joy. It's also the season when we remember the historic event that started all of this celebration. In the first part of our two-part Christmas edition of Secrets from the Ancient Past, we looked at the journey that brought Mary and Joseph to Bethlehem. I'm so glad you're joining us today as we complete that journey. Visit Bethlehem today and you'll find a very large city. When Mary and Joseph came here, the city was only a small town. And if you're on a tour of Israel when you visit Bethlehem, you'll quickly be taken to a very old church. As Christian pilgrims from around the world enter the Church of the Nativity, they duck down to enter through the door of humility. This is one of the oldest churches in the world, first built more than 350 years after Jesus was born. This church may appear rather strange if you're not accustomed to Orthodox or Catholic churches. From the smells of candles to the iconic artwork on the walls to tour guides rattling off historic facts about the building itself, it can all seem pretty disappointing. I mean, if you've grown up singing songs like Silent Night, Away in a Manger, and O Little Town of Bethlehem, this doesn't look anything like Christmas. If you wait in a line long enough, you'll eventually descend into a small basement at the Church of the Nativity. Now, this room is almost completely covered with Middle Eastern rugs, Orthodox adornments, and tile flooring. A silver star marks the spot where it is said that Jesus was born. If you're with one of my groups when we're in Israel, I'll invite you to look very closely. Look up at the ceiling or even behind one of the wall coverings and you will see that you are in a cave. Go next door to a much newer church, St. Catherine's Church, and you'll be able to go downstairs there too. Now, this church is also built over a cave, and this cave is much larger and it hasn't been covered up. It's very easy to see that you're in a cave. Now, here's the important detail. The two caves underneath these two churches are connected. Do you get this? The churches built over the place where it is believed Jesus was born are built over a large cave complex. Why is this important? Because Jesus was born in just such an environment. Caves are very common in this area of the Judean mountains, and people have been using caves like these for centuries to provide extra room for their homes and natural shelter for their animals. Even today, shepherds may use a cave in these hills to give shelter to their sheep and goats. It wasn't a very nice place to stay, but it's all Joseph could find. It was a terrible place to give birth, but it's all Mary had to work with. According to Luke's account of what happened, Mary and Joseph found no other room anywhere at all. They had to find bedding in a place where animals usually slept. The walls of the cave provided protection from the wind, so it was warm and dry. And the stone manger that usually held food for animals was just the right size for the baby's first bed. But it really was on a dirt floor where Mary gave birth. Even if she had a blanket on which to lay, it was a stunningly humble way for any baby anywhere to enter the world. Perhaps no one has ever had a more humble beginning than Jesus, and he is the very definition of Emmanuel, God with us. You know, there's something else that most Bible readers miss as they read the Christmas story each year. On their way to Bethlehem, Mary and Joseph traveled past the imposing presence of Herod the Great. Now, you remember Herod. He's the cruel king who would later kill all of the infants and toddlers of Bethlehem after he heard that a new king might have been born. Mary and Joseph ran with Jesus, ran for their lives to Egypt. They barely escaped. While Mary and Joseph had nothing, Herod seemed to have everything. He knew every comfort. He had plenty of money. He had all the power. As Mary and Joseph neared Bethlehem, they would have seen the unmistakable image of the Herodian, Herod's massive fortress/palace that towered over every village in the area. Herod was king of the Jews. Appointed by the Romans, he had taken Judea by force, and he ruled with an iron fist and a quick sword. Was Herod really as cruel as the Bible makes him out to be? Would he have really murdered children? Well, ask his family. Herod murdered at least 10 members of his own family, including his favorite wife, including 3 of his sons, and including the young man who was serving as the high priest at the Jewish temple when Herod had him killed. So, when Herod received visitors from the east who reported that a bright star may mean that the new Jewish king had been born, Herod soon ordered the deaths of every boy in Bethlehem and its vicinity who was under 2 years of age. Herod stands in stark contrast to Mary and Joseph and, of course, to Jesus. Herod was the king of Judea, the king of Bethlehem. He had everything. Mary and Joseph, their newborn infant, they had absolutely nothing. Had you seen this story play out on that particular day, would you have ever guessed that the more powerful king was the baby in the manger? Would you have ever guessed that the world would barely remember Herod, the king of Bethlehem, the king of Judea? And would you claim that this Jesus in the manger, this baby, was the King of Kings? Well, the shepherds believed it. They had heard that the new king had been born when angels announced his birth. The Magi came several months later, and they worshiped Jesus. And here we are today, more than 2,000 years later, singing great songs about the great birth of Jesus, who is Emmanuel, God with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. I pray God's blessing on your continued celebration of the story of all stories, and I pray God's favor upon all of us as we approach a brand new year. I'm Andy Cook.